let's explore cultural geography in East Asia. And we are going to look at cultural geography in terms of language, especially in China. And then we're also going to consider popular culture and soft power, which we've been looking at in other regions, like with Nollywood and with Bollywood. So, in terms of language, we have some different patterns here in East Asia than in other parts of the world. First of all, these are not languages that are Indo-European, right? There's none of that here. These are completely different language groups, completely different histories, completely different structure, and some of those structures you can see both in the way that they are spoken, which we'll get to in a minute, but also the way that they are written. And here we have logographic writing. And logographic writing uses symbols to represent words rather than a syllable. In English, we have a whole bunch of prefixes and suffixes, and we can cram those together to create new words or meanings, an antonym, a synonym, right? All of those different things. We form our words through symbols. With logographic writing, you put together different pictures, basically, or things that started out as pictures. They are symbols that represent words, and you put those together, and that's how you form different ideas of different words. So it's a completely different approach than something that you may be familiar with. There are some definite advantages to this. Speakers of different languages can use the same writing system, and that is exactly what goes on with the two most widespread languages in China, Mandarin and Cantonese. The people who speak the two languages are not mutually intelligible to each other. The languages are different in the way that they sound and the way that they're approached. But they both use logographic writing and they use the same symbols. So you are able to read Mandarin even if you only speak Cantonese, for example. Okay? So that is a definite advantage. A disadvantage, though, is the sheer number of characters you need to learn. How many characters do you need to know to read or write English? There's 26 letters in our alphabet, right? And then you need to know a few other things, a question mark, quotation marks, right? The ellipses, those kinds of things. But there's less than 40 that you really need to be familiar with English and be able to use it and be able to speak and read it. In logographic writing, specifically in Chinese, in order to be considered functionally literate, you actually need to know about 3,000 characters. And there is a difference, right? So this is a much harder language to learn from at least a writing point of view, because there's so many more characters that you need to know to be able to be considered functionally literate. So that is a disadvantage. Chinese is the most widespread example of logographic writing in the world. And of course, the fact that China's population is so huge, that's the main reason for that. But it also had an impact on the languages around it. Chinese culture diffused in many different ways, and we can see this in everything from language to the use of chopsticks to religion. But Chinese diffused throughout the area and influenced the written language, especially in Japan and Korea, in the Korean Peninsula. So there's a little bit about the most widespread written language in the area. When we talk about the spoken language, we also have some interesting patterns here. We have several that are tonal languages. And I will link a page below, right, a video. I'm not linking it here and clicking on it because it goes to the middle of a web page, and so you just will need to scroll down a bit. But there is a woman who goes through the different tones in Chinese, because in a tonal language, the different tones change the meaning. So there's a tone that's just flat. You can click here to get to that page. You can go down, right? There's a rise, there's a down, and then an up. There's several different patterns of tone, and each one of those tones changes the meaning of the word. That's really different than English, because if I say, "Oh, you did a great job," I have tone there. I'm telling you did a good job. If I say, "Yeah, you did a great job," the words are the same. They have the same meaning. I may have changed the intent of the words. In one, I'm being complimentary, in the other, I'm being sarcastic. But those words still are doing a good job, right? It's those words. I'm still talking about something you did. In a tonal language, me shifting the tone like that would have meant that maybe suddenly I was saying that my horse was numb rather than me saying that you've done a good job. So this is a very different approach to language. So listen to this video and see if you can find and hear those shifts. Okay, I'm going to pause here and then we'll come back and talk about the globalization of culture and the power of that culture in this region.